I think we're entering a whole new world of how transactions can work, not just from the blockchain point of view, but also from the identity point of view. So it's very exciting for sure. So I'm thrilled to be here with my friend Alex Kech, who is the CEO of the LEI Foundation. The LEI is the leading identifier for institutions in the world, and there's a common phrase that goes, no LEI, no trade. And so I think it's very important that in order for there to be trades in the blockchain ecosystem, you need identity solutions, specifically the LEI, to make sure that people can transact and institutions can transact in a way that's compliant. So I'm really thrilled to be joined by him here and to chat through the importance of the LEI, the importance of identity, our new strategic partnership that we've announced recently, and some of the great work we've been doing together. Alex, thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. So our strategic partnership, that we've announced, how do you see that? What is the importance of that? What are your views of it?
It's a critical piece of what we need to bring LEI, as you mentioned, on-chain. LEI is a piece of data at the end of the day with reference data, and we make it digital with the verifiable legal entity identifier, but that's not enough. So VLEI needs to be integrated into various digital platforms, digital solution technologies, and you are the best place to do that because obviously that's your job pretty much, is making blockchains interoperable, external data source accessible on-chain, and it was a logical partner to approach to discuss, okay, can you help us bring VLEI on-chain, and thank you for doing so.
Yeah, it's been our pleasure. I think the LEI is one of the most important pieces of data that we could be putting on-chain because it creates this fundamental root of trust that everything else can be built on in a transaction. Because once I know who you are and once you know who I am, we can attribute a lot of other credentials, a lot of other information on top of that, and then we can use all that information to transact with each other and to manage risk and to prove to regulators that we transacted correctly so that we're compliant, right? So I think it's a common occurrence in the traditional finance world that the LEI serves this purpose. And if the digital asset, blockchain, institutional tokenization world is going to go to the same level as the TradFi world, I think having the best-in-class identifier is going to be very important and useful. So I think it's really benefiting both of our projects, but it's also benefiting these two industries.
Absolutely, and there's also what you added with our partnership this morning, that was announced this morning, is the concept of verifiable smart contract. So when an instrument is issued in the traditional world, the issuer needs to be identified, obviously, and it's identified by its LEI in most of the jurisdiction. So the next question is, how do we bring that on-chain? And through the VLEI, we enable verify, and the collaboration we have, we are enabling verifiable smart contract, which enables tokens and tokens issuers to be clearly identified, avoid fake tokens like they've been in the past, and ensure that when you trade something, you know what you're trading and you know who the issuer is in a verifiable way.
Absolutely. I think the importance of being able to do an institutional grade transaction on a chain, because you can verify the details of who you're doing it with and whether you're meeting the compliance requirements, is going to be a fundamental feature of a chain. And so having the LEI on a chain via Chainlink is going to be a deciding factor for whether institutions do or don't go live on your chain. And so we see that very clearly together with you, absolutely. Recently, there was the Swift hackathon, which I'm really, really proud to say the team that won that, the kind of joint Chainlink and LEI team, was able to provide the winning solution for that hackathon, which was exactly this solution we just talked about, where you basically have the LEI working with smart contracts to confirm compliance, and also integrating that back into Swift systems so that it's compatible with the current Swift messages and the current Swift infrastructure. What do you think about the solution that won in the Swift hackathon?
Well, it's great because interoperability is is the thing, right? We're not going to replace the existing infrastructures with the new infrastructures overnight. So you need solutions that enables not only interoperability between chains, which you're already offering, between off-chain data and on-chain systems, but also between existing infrastructures and future and new infrastructures. And you also need to be able to try to interoperate with the trust level that is required to ensure that something that happens there and needs to be sent on-chain is happening with the right level of trust, with the right level of verifiability, to ensure that overall that the system works smoothly. And that's what you've been able to build with your team. And I'm not surprised that you won the hackathon. I didn't know that it would be the case, because we didn't participate, obviously, in the jury. And I was really, really glad when I heard that that solution was the winner.
Yeah, I think it says a lot about the combination of reliable identity systems, reliable oracles and contracts, and the ability to synchronize all that back to an existing system like SWIFT. So I think it shows kind of the future of what people can expect in terms of reliable off-chain identity systems, reliable oracles and contracts, and then reliable traditional systems all working together to create a very good path for institutions, institutional tokenization, digital assets to really grow in the blockchain industry. So I think it's really exciting.
And we actually are responding to Larry Finn's request. Remember the CEO of BlackRock, who said everything will be tokenized. We just need to solve the identity verification problem, which is not solved up to now. And I think with those type of solutions, we are doing that. So, and I think ultimately that's how scale will be obtained. And yeah, I'm excited to be part of that journey with you and with the other partners we have.
Absolutely, super excited. Larry Fink's obviously a very smart man, and I think a lot of what he said, during that interview is right. And everything will be tokenized. You do just have to solve a few of the key institutional hurdles. And then tokenization, 24/7, 365 clearing and settlement, 24/7, 365 collateral management, 24/7, 365 data, all has massive benefits compared to the current system. So Alex, why do you think that organizational identity in the digital asset blockchain context is valuable and important?
It's actually critical because you can't do anything regulated anywhere without a proper identity system. And organizational identity is the identity system for companies, financial institutions, and non-financial institutions to recognize who they are among themselves in transactions, to be able to know who is issuing what instruments, so what am I buying, who am I buying it from, and be able to then, following that transaction, do regulatory reporting, audit trail of what happened, and therefore organizational identity systems like the LEI enables exactly that. It has proven its power and its utility already in traditional finance with OTC derivative reporting, helping regulators to manage risk, or at least to see the risk of potential contagion, the risk of relationships between various companies. And I think it will have a similar role in digital assets, not only for the benefit of regulators, but also for the benefit of each participant in the markets to have a clear view of their risks, being able to comply to rules and regulations, to AML, CFT, and all those rules that are in place for ensuring that the system is only used legitimately and not for bad reasons by bad actors.
Yeah, so you and me were on a panel today, and there were some regulator folks on there, I think from a supervisory board of some
Financial
kind.
Stability Board. Yes.
Financial Stability Board, right. And I think I saw a lot of points about how regulators need to understand what's going on in a market because they can identify who is doing what in a market. And also a lot of points from the other panelists about how making compliance easier and efficient is valuable.
Yes.
And so I think the basis of that is identity. And until you identify who you're transacting with, regulators can't be comfortable with the transaction. compliance can't really happen, and these are the types of things that are really just showstoppers for a transaction happening at all. We also discussed the concept of automated compliance and automating compliance on chain, with identity as maybe the first stepping stone in that process. What are your views on the automation of compliance, ACE, the automated compliance engine that was used to win the hackathon recently? What is the value of automated compliance in your mind?
I did like the explanation that Prabhat provided about it, where he was explaining that trust is kind of an identity layer with credentialing and attestations on top of it that build progressive trust into the entity that is identified at the bottom. And that's exactly what ACE is doing at the end of the day, is building providing a solution where on an identity plate of a company or an individual actually as well, you can layer an additional level of credentials and attestations and trusts to enable various kinds of transactions and financial, and do so in an automated way rather than repeating the same process over and over again, or reading documents or slowing down the transaction pace. You can do it so quickly and in a way that is verifiable, that is guaranteed by computers pretty much, that it leads to a faster transaction, a cheaper transaction. And that was also the conclusion of the event we had today this morning, is that that's really the benefits ultimately of digital identity, of credentialing, of automation of compliance, is cheaper and faster transactions for the benefit not only of big companies but also smaller companies, and who may now have finally access to markets and instruments they don't have access to today, thanks to that type of system and solution.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think there's one layer of identity that's the root of trust, which I think is what the LEI really provides, that then all the other credentials and proofs about that identity are built on top of. And then all of those credentials and proofs are seen as reliable because you know that they definitely relate to this identity. And then on top of all those credentials and proofs, is this entity or person on the OFAC list? Is this entity or person an accredited investor? Is this entity or person proven to be in a certain jurisdiction? Just as a few quick examples, you then can process policies and conditions against that layer of information, which I do think can get larger and larger, right? So once you have that root of trust in the form of the LEI, you can layer and layer and layer on more information, which does two things in my opinion. The first thing it does is it allows you to do that transaction in a way that the risk is managed for compliance. And then the second thing that it does that I'm really excited about is actually the possibility that having that verified once could make it reusable. So right now in the current compliance landscape, if you want to transact with 3, 4, 5 institutions, you have to do 3, 4, 5 onboardings, which take anywhere from a few weeks to a few months. Yeah, it's usually a few months. So now you're literally taking a year and a half, 2 years to get properly onboarded with the 10, 20 counterparties that you need to be onboarded with to start really doing transactions at scale. But we could be in a world where if you wanted to start doing transactions at scale, you had to verify yourself in a very specific way against a certain set of conditions, and that would open up hundreds of counterparties to you. Because all those counterparties they can verify that you have a reliable LEI root of trust identity. B, you've built up that identity with a lot of credentials about AML, KYC, asset, jurisdiction, and any other key pieces of information. And then they can run an automated compliance check against that information and be able to prove to their compliance department and to the regulator that at the moment they started to transact with you, you met all those conditions. That second one, I think, is a much more long-term vision for the automation of compliance, but I think it has a lot of value.
And it allows it actually to do it also ad hoc, meaning transaction by transaction, anytime really you want or you need to do that check. So you can repeat the process because it's computer-based and as much as you want, and it doesn't eat time, it doesn't eat resources, it doesn't eat throughput, I would say, for the transaction to happen. So but I agree with you, I think it will take time because regulators and compliance department are not necessarily yet wired, I would say, for that type of automation. But ultimately, over time, I think it's the best approach. The good news there is that in the FATF recent publications, so the Financial Action Task Force, they've mentioned clearly that credential-based compliance is something that they are willing to look at because they see the benefits that we've just described. So if at the level of the entity that publish those recommendations for AML, CFT, etc., they're ready to look at it, I think we have this door to open and start talking about it and start demonstrating it with your solution and others to say this is working, you know?
Yeah, it's very exciting. I think we're entering a whole new world of how transactions can work, not just from the blockchain point of view, but also from the identity point of view. So it's very exciting for sure. So at this year's Cybos, I feel like interoperability is a very big term that everyone is using to describe the key blocker for them to really scale up their operations on chain. And identity, as we've said, is a critical component of these transactions. So that means that identity would also have to be interoperable across chains. We in the automated compliance engine that won the hackathon and that we've implemented together with you and for the use of the LEI has the CCID, which is the cross-chain identifier, which is an identification kind of container that can move across chains. I wanted to hear your views on the importance of cross-chain identity being cross-chain, right? So the ability for an identity to work consistently, not just on one chain, but on many other chains.
It's critical. I would even say it needs also to be able to work off-chain as well. So being able to bring identity from any traditional system to on-chain to on-chain, A, B, C, etc. It's so important because identity for me, it's not a platform play. It's not. It should not only be working in one type of situation or one type of system or one type of vendor. It needs to be a protocol. And the VLEI is a protocol, the CCID is a protocol that enables that portability of identity at the end of the day and portability of credential linked to the identity. And it's critical. Every single attempt that in the past that I know who wanted to create an identity system that only works within one platform always fail. The only one that succeed are the big commercial offering with so much traction that identity is usable in that system, but ultimately an Apple ID is not usable on a Google phone, for a G phone or whatever, or Microsoft phone. So if we want to build an identity system, especially for legal entity that works, we need to ensure that it's a protocol, not a platform play, and that it can be used across chain. That's what you enable, but also from traditional to chain, leveraging the VLEI in this case, and the LEI as an identifier. So that's my view. And I think we're getting there, and there's more work, as always, to do, but we're definitely going in the right direction.
I think we're on the same page. I think there need to be open global protocols that are relied upon because they're widely used, because if you adopt this protocol, you're going to be able to interoperate with a lot of other participants, that you can adopt a protocol cheaply and simply, and then if you need some premium features, that's a different story. Someone can get paid for providing those to you. But the base level adoption has to be simple and open and cheap. And the good news, I think, from our collaboration is that your VLEI system and our CCID system are very compatible and very open in how they're able to be accessed and adopted.
Yes.
And so that's another very compatible thing. And I completely agree with you that the systems that win get this adoption from being open and allowing anyone to adopt them and get on the standard. So I'm very excited that we could come together and make something, to your point, not only getting it on chain, but getting it to work on all the chains, so that the breadth of adoption can be what's needed to make a truly reliable and useful standard, not just because it's well built, but because it's easy to adopt and so many people have adopted it, that it's valuable to adopt, right? Because once you use a VLEI, once you use it inside of a CCID on chain, you get access to a whole universe of use cases, counterparties, regulated institutional grade transaction types. That's, I think, the real value that's going to come from this. Well, this has been great. Alex, thank you so much for the thoughtful conversation. Really thrilled to be working together on this. Excited about winning the Swift Hackathon with our joint solution, and very excited for what's next for the VLEI and our collaboration on the CCID and everything else we're doing together.
Thank you.
Thank you.